This isn't a story about gold dust or cattle drives. It's about a silence, the kind so deep it screams. It's about a jail cell that wasn't a cell, and a sheriff's daughter who made a choice that lit a fuse. The town of Redemption Creek was built on secrets, but the one Eliza Thorne kept in her father's root cellar was the most dangerous of all. She thought she was saving a man's life. She had no idea she was signing her own death warrant, and that the man she freed would be the only one who could save her from the doom her own father had planned. The dust in Redemption Creek, Colorado, had a way of getting into everything. It was in your mouth, your clothes, and, as Eliza Thorne knew too well, it was in the hearts of the men who ran the town. On this day, the dust was a swirling, angry cloud, churned up by the hooves of the posse, dragging a single, bound figure toward the jailhouse. Eliza watched from the window of Sweeney's general store. She held a bolt of blue calico she had no intention of buying, her knuckles white. "Varmint," muttered old Mr. Sweeney, polishing a jar of licorice. "Another Lakota stray. Sheriff'll see him swing." Eliza flinched. The prisoner was slumped over his horse, hands tied to the pommel. He wore no paint, just buckskin and dust. As they passed, he lifted his head, and his eyes, dark, defiant, and burning with a cold fire, met hers. A jolt went through her, sharp and sudden. He wasn't a stray. He was a man. Her father, Sheriff Jedediah Thorne, met the posse on the boardwalk. He was a mountain of a man, his voice a low rumble that carried authority. "Put him in the back," the sheriff ordered, "not in the cells." His deputy, a jumpy man named Harlan, squinted. "Sheriff, the cells are empty." "I said the back, Harlan. In the root cellar. He's a special case. Too dangerous for the bars." The townspeople grumbled, wanting a look, but the sheriff's word was law. They dispersed, the high noon drama over. Eliza, however, felt a cold knot tighten in her stomach. The root cellar beneath the jail wasn't just secure, it was lightless, airless, and forgotten. It was a place to break things. That night, the main house attached to the jail was silent. Her father was at the saloon, establishing his alibi of town business. Eliza waited until the saloon's tinny piano drifted on the night air. Then she moved. She stole the heavy ring of keys from her father's desk, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. She slipped out the back, past the empty cells, and to the thick, slanted wooden doors of the cellar. The air that hit her as she opened it was foul, a mix of damp earth, rotting potatoes, and fear. She lit a small lantern, the weak light barely pushing back the oppressive dark. He was chained to the main support beam. The man, the Lakota, was not what she expected. He was lean, but powerfully built. He wasn't the savage the town criers screamed about. He was young, perhaps her age, or a few years older. He had a deep gash on his forehead, matted with blood, and his right wrist was raw from the ropes. He watched her, silent. He did not beg. He did not threaten. He just watched. His stillness was more unnerving than any sound could have been. Eliza's voice was a whisper. She held up a canteen and a small bundle. "I brought water and medicine." She set the lantern down and slowly approached. He didn't move, but his muscles tensed like a wolf in a trap. She uncorked the canteen. His eyes tracked the movement. He was desperately thirsty, but his pride was a physical barrier. "My name is Eliza," she said, needing to fill the terrifying silence. He said nothing. She knelt, just out of his reach, and pushed the canteen toward him. "Please, I'm not them." His gaze flickered from her face to the canteen. Slowly, painfully, He reached with his one free hand, the other was chained tight to the beam, and took it. He drank, his throat working, and the sound was both a relief and an agony to her. She unwrapped the bundle, a clean rag, a tin of Dr. Harrison's antiseptic salve, and a piece of bread. "You're wounded," she said. He finished the water and set the canteen down. His voice, when it came, was a dry rasp. "They will kill you if they find you here." She froze. He spoke perfect English, not just the broken pidgin of the trading posts, but clear, measured English. Who are you?" she asked. "A dead man," he said, his eyes finding the shadows in the corner. "No," she said, her voice firmer. "They call you a rustler. Is it true?" He let out a short, bitter laugh that sounded like scraping stone. "They call me what they need to. The man who brought me in. The one in the fine suit who paid the posse. He is the rustler. He is the murderer." "Mr. Croft?" Eliza breathed, a new, colder fear taking root. Silas Croft, owner of the sprawling Circle C ranch, was the most powerful man in the county. He was her father's friend. The prisoner's eyes snapped to hers. "You know him?" It wasn't a question. He has business with my father." "Then your father is a fool or a partner." Eliza recoiled, insulted. "My father is the law." "He is a law," the man corrected, his gaze unwavering. "Not the law." He leaned his head back against the post, the fire in him seeming to dim. "Go, girl. Your medicine won't stop a rope." She didn't go. She dipped the rag in the water, and before she could lose her nerve, she stepped forward and began to clean the gash on his head. He was stone still, his skin hot beneath her fingers. Their proximity was electric, a dangerous, unspoken thing. "What is your name?" she asked again, her voice low. He watched her for a long moment, the scent of the antiseptic filling the small space. "My people call me Toka." "Toka," she repeated. "What does it mean?" He looked at the lantern light dancing on the earthen floor. "It means fox, because I am supposed to be clever, but clever foxes do not end up in chains." "Clever foxes," Eliza said, tying a small bandage, "also know when to accept help." She gathered her things, the spell broken. "I'll come back tomorrow, if I can." "Don't," he said. "He will be back." "Croft, he doesn't want a trial. He wants me silent. He will be back tonight." The finality in his voice terrified her. He wasn't just predicting his death, he was stating a fact. As she climbed the steps and silently closed the heavy doors, she knew she had done more than just bring water to a prisoner. She had stepped into the trap with him. The sun rose over Redemption Creek with a false promise of purity. Eliza moved through her morning chores in a fog, the cellar's damp chill clinging to her. Every footstep in the street, every shout, sent a jolt of panic through her. She was now a criminal in her own home. Her father was at the breakfast table, his badge gleaming on his vest, a cup of black coffee in his hand. He looked solid, permanent, a liar. "You were restless last night," Jedediah said, not looking up from the Redemption Weekly. "It was the heat, Papa," Eliza lied, her hand trembling as she poured her own coffee. "It's always the heat." He turned the page. "Silas Croft is coming to dinner tonight." The coffee cup rattled in its saucer. "Croft?" "Here. He's a prominent citizen, Eliza. He's interested in the town's future. And in yours." Jedediah finally looked at her, his gaze heavy. "You're 19. You can't spend your life dusting my shelves. Croft is a man of means. He's unmarried." The implication was as stark and ugly as a gallows. "I am not for sale, Papa." "No," her father said, his voice hardening. "But you are for securing. A good match. That's all I've ever wanted for you. Don't make this difficult." The conversation was cut short by Deputy Harlan, who knocked and entered without waiting. "Sheriff, that prisoner, the Lakota, he's not good." "What do you mean, not good?" "He's just sitting there," Harlan stammered, twisting his hat. "Ain't eaten, ain't drunk the water I took him, just staring. It's unnatural." Jedediah sighed, scraping his chair back. "He's playing you, Harlan. He's trying to get in your head. I'll deal with him after my rounds." Eliza's heart hammered. Toka hadn't eaten or drunk Harlan's water. He was waiting, or he had given up. She had to go back. She feigned a headache and retired to her room, waiting for her father and Harlan to leave for their rounds. The jail was quiet, the cells empty, the house still. She grabbed a heel of bread, some cheese, and filled the canteen again. The cellar was worse in the daylight. The single sliver of light from a crack in the door only illuminated the dust motes. Toka was exactly as she had left him, but his head was slumped. For a terrible second, she thought he was dead. "Toka," she whispered, rushing to him. His head snapped up, the fire returning. "I told you not to come back." "You didn't eat," she said, thrusting the bread and cheese at him. "You have to." "Why?" he challenged. "So I am strong when they drag me out to hang me? So I can feel the rope bite? So you can fight," she hissed, her fear replaced by a sudden, sharp anger. "So you are not just a stray, as they call you. You said Croft was a murderer. You said he was the real rustler. Prove it." His eyes narrowed, studying her. He took the bread. He ate, slowly at first, then ravenously. He drank the water. Life, and with it resolve, flowed back into him. "Good," he said, wiping his mouth. "Now, listen." He spoke quickly, his voice low and urgent. "Croft isn't just a rustler. He's a thief of a different kind. He's taking land that isn't his. The Circle C? The Circle C was half owned by a man named Elias Vance, a good man, an Easterner. He and Croft were partners. Vance, he respected the treaties. He was negotiating with my people for grazing rights. He believed the valley could be shared." "Was?" Eliza asked. "Was," Toka affirmed grimly. "I was tracking a small herd of my people's ponies, stolen by raiders. The trail led me to the Widow McCrory's old homestead at the edge of Croft's land. It's been abandoned for years. I saw Croft and two of his men, and Elias Vance. They were arguing. Vance was shouting about a document, a deed. Then Croft, he pulled his pistol. He shot him. Just shot him." Eliza put her hand to her mouth, the horror of it a physical sickness. "They buried him there," Toka continued, his voice flat. "In the old dry well by the homestead. They buried the deed with him. Then they saw me. I was a witness. They've been hunting me ever since. They called me a rustler to give your father the law he needed to hold me." "My God," Eliza whispered, "we have to tell my father. He'll arrest him." Toka looked at her with something like pity. "Your father is having dinner with him tonight. Croft doesn't fear your father. He owns him. Or he's about to." The truth of it hit Eliza like a physical blow. The business, the interest in her future. Croft wasn't courting her. He was making a purchase. A sound from above made them both freeze. The scrape of a boot on the jailhouse floor. "Harlan," Eliza breathed, panicked. "Hide," Toka whispered, gesturing to a stack of old potato crates in the darkest corner. Eliza scrambled behind them, her heart trying to escape her chest. She could see Toka through a crack. He had resumed his broken posture, head down. The cellar doors opened, flooding the space with light. Deputy Harlan stood there, silhouetted. Sheriff said you get one more chance at this water, Harlan said, his voice overly loud. He kicked a bucket of water across the floor. It sloshed near Toka's feet. Drink it or die, savage. Makes no mind to me. Toka didn't move. Harlan grunted. Suit yourself. He seemed jumpy, eager to leave the dark. He started to turn, and then he stopped. His eyes scanned the room. Funny, Harlan muttered. Smells different down here. Most smells like perfume. He sniffed the air, his gaze landing on the dark corner where Eliza was hiding. She held her breath, convinced her heart was audible. Guess it's just the rot, he said, shaking his head. He turned and slammed the doors, plunging the cellar back into darkness. The sound of a heavy bar sliding into place echoed through the earth. Eliza sagged against the wall, trembling. She was locked in. Toka's voice cut through the dark. He has locked you in with the fox, little bird. Now, what do we do? The air in the cellar grew thick and stale. The hours stretched into an eternity of blackness, broken only by the sound of their breathing and the scuttling of unseen things. Eliza had moved from the potato crates, sitting with her back against the damp earth wall, as far from Toka as she could, yet achingly aware of his presence. He'll be back, Eliza whispered, her voice trembling. Harlan, he'll come back. Or my father. He'll notice I'm missing. Will he? Toka's voice was calm, a strange counterpoint to the tight knot of panic in her chest. He has a prominent citizen coming to dinner, a man who wants to secure his daughter's future. He will be distracted by the glitter of his new chains. His words were cruel, but they rang with truth. Her father would be laughing, drinking whiskey, sealing her fate, while she sat in the dark. What do we do? She asked, the we hanging in the air. You said you brought medicine in your bundle. Yes? What else? Eliza's mind raced. A rag, the salve. Oh. She felt for the small satchel she'd brought, her fingers brushing against the cold, hard-baked bread. No. She'd left. My sewing kit. I was mending a tear in my skirt. I must have left it in my pocket when I... In your pocket? No, I put it in the bundle to bring down here. To mend the bandage if I needed to. She fumbled in the dark, her hands finding the small leather roll. It just has needles. Thread. Show me. She crept toward him, guided by the faint clinking of his chain. She unrolled the kit, her fingers identifying each item by touch. A thimble, needles, a small pair of shears, and her fingers closed on it. A metal file. For my nails. It was small, barely 4 inches long, but it was steel. A heavy silence fell between them. To give it to him was to cross a line from which there was no return. It was no longer mercy. It was conspiracy. It was treason. Eliza, he said, and the use of her name, spoken so softly in the dark, was a shock. Croft shot his partner in cold blood. He will not hesitate to have me shot while escaping. Your deputy Harlan will be given a bonus. Your father will call it justice. And then Croft will come for you. This is not about my life anymore. It's about yours. He was right. This was not a rescue. This was survival. Her hand, shaking violently, held out the file. The shackle, she whispered. Not the chain. The pin on the shackle. It's old. It might be rusted. His fingers brushed hers as he took it. The calloused, dry skin against hers was electric. Go back to the crates, he said. The sound. It will be small, but steel on steel. It carries. She retreated. And then the sound began. Skrr, skrr, skrr. It was a tiny, grating noise, like an insect boring into wood. It was the sound of hope and of utter, world-ending doom. Every scrape set her teeth on edge. She prayed for the piano music from the saloon to start, for a dog to bark, for anything to cover the noise. Time lost all meaning. It felt like hours. Her muscles ached from crouching. Skrr, skrr, snap. The sound was shockingly loud, a metallic crack, followed by the heavy clink of the shackle hitting the packed earth. Toka was free. At that exact moment, the cellar doors were flung open. Light and noise flooded in. But it wasn't Harlan. It was her father, Sheriff Jedediah Thorne, holding a lantern high. And behind him, his face a mask of cold satisfaction, was Silas Croft. Eliza screamed and scrambled to her feet, exposed. Croft smiled, a thin reptilian gesture. "Well, well, Jedediah, it seems your daughter has a fondness for your prisoners. I was told she seemed distracted. I see she's just a poor hostess." Jedediah Thorne's face was a color Eliza had never seen, a deep, mottled purple. His gaze went from his daughter, covered in dirt, to the free Lakota, to the open shackle and the small metal file lying beside it. "Eliza," he choked out. The word was a wound. "Papa, no, listen," Eliza cried. "He's the killer. Croft, he murdered Elias Vance. He buried him at the McCrory homestead." Croft laughed, a full, hearty laugh. "She's hysterical, Jedediah. The savage has filled her head with lies. It's what they do. They charm the weak-minded. And you helped him, didn't you, my dear?" His eyes, cold as river stones, bored into her. "You gave him the file." He, Eliza stammered, but the lie died in her throat. Her silence was a confession. The sheriff's face crumpled. The betrayal was absolute. He wasn't a lawman in that moment. He was just a father, broken. "Eliza," he said again, his voice cracking, "what have you done?" "She has done what traitors do," Croft said, stepping forward. His hand was on the butt of his pistol. "And we know what we do with traitors, and with the savages who corrupt them." Toka had been silent, coiled in the shadows. He moved now. He didn't move toward the door. He moved toward Eliza. In one fluid motion, he lunged, not at her, but past her, grabbing the heavy wooden potato crate. With a roar, he heaved it at the two men in the doorway. Croft and the sheriff jumped back as the crate splintered on the steps. "Run!" Toka yelled at Eliza, but she was frozen. Her father raised his gun. "Don't move, boy. Don't you move." "Papa, no!" Toka didn't hesitate. He charged up the steps, right into the barrel of the gun. He wasn't trying to attack. He was trying to get past. He slammed his shoulder into Jedediah Thorne, sending the big man staggering. The gun went off, the shot deafening in the enclosed space, the bullet burying itself in the jailhouse wall. Eliza screamed. Croft, recovering his balance, drew his own pistol. "Die, you red-skinned devil!" But Toka was fast. He used the sheriff as a shield, spinning him around, and then shoved him bodily into Croft. Both men stumbled, a tangle of limbs and curses. It was all the time Toka needed. He burst out of the cellar and into the jailhouse proper. "Harlan, get him!" the sheriff roared, scrambling to his feet. Eliza, galvanized by the explosion of violence, ran up the steps after them. The jailhouse was chaos. Deputy Harlan, drawn by the shot, was running in from the street. Toka, seeing his escape cut off, did the unexpected. He didn't run for the front door. He ran into the attached house. Her house. "He's in the house!" Harlan yelled. "He's after my girl!" Jedediah bellowed, his face wild with a new, mistaken fear. Toka burst into the small parlor and ran for the back door. It was bolted. He fumbled with the latch. Eliza ran in just as her father and Croft filled the doorway behind her. "Toka, no!" she screamed. He got the bolt free and threw the door open, pausing for 1/2 second on the threshold. He looked back at her. His face was unreadable. Was it gratitude? Pity? Accusation? Then he was gone, vanishing into the dark alleys of Redemption Creek. A heavy, terrible silence filled the room. Eliza was breathing in ragged gasps. Silas Croft, his fine suit jacket askew, smoothed his lapels. He looked at Eliza, his eyes glinting. Well, that was illuminating. Sheriff Thorne, his face ashen, turned to his daughter. His hand, the size of a ham, was shaking. He had never, not once in her entire life, raised it to her. He slapped her. The sound was like a gunshot, sharp and final. Eliza's head snapped back, the sting bringing hot, immediate tears to her eyes. "You," her father growled, his voice thick with shame and rage. "You are a disgrace. You have disgraced my name. You have disgraced the law." He grabbed her arm in a bruising grip and dragged her past Croft. "Go to your room, and you will not come out. You will not come out until I tell you." He threw her into her bedroom and slammed the door. She heard the click of the key in the lock. She was a prisoner. She stumbled to the window, her cheek burning. She looked out into the darkness, but there was nothing to see. The fox was gone, and she was left in the trap. The key in the lock was a sound of finality. Eliza was no longer a daughter. She was a prisoner, and her father, her own flesh and blood, was the jailer. The town of Redemption Creek, which had been her world, became a distant, muffled sound. She heard the comings and goings of the jail, the heavy boots of her father, the nervous chatter of Deputy Harlan. But no one came for her. No one spoke to her, except to pass a plate of food under the guard of her father's stony silence. She was a pariah. The word had spread like wildfire, fanned by Silas Croft, the sheriff's daughter, a traitor, an Indian lover. She helped the savage escape. She saw the women from the church sewing circle cross the street to avoid walking on the same side as the jailhouse. Mr. Sweeney, who had given her candy since she was a child, now stared through her as if she were a ghost. Her father's shame was a palpable thing. It filled the house like smoke. He had lost the respect of the town, and in a place like Redemption Creek, respect was the only currency that mattered more than gold. He was a ruined man. 3 days after the escape, she heard heavy footfalls in the parlor, her father's low rumble, and another, smoother, colder voice. Silas Croft. Eliza pressed her ear to the wooden door, her blood running cold. "A complete disaster, Jedediah," Croft was saying. "Your reputation is in tatters. The town thinks you can't even control your own household, let alone a prisoner. They're talking about calling for a new election." "Let 'em talk," her father grumbled, but the fear in his voice was unmistakable. "I'll find the boy." "You won't find him," Croft said dismissively. "My men are trackers, and they lost him in the high rocks. He's gone. No, your problem isn't the Lakota. Your problem is her." A silence. Eliza felt her stomach clench. "Your daughter," Croft continued, his voice taking on a sympathetic, oily tone. "She's a liability, a compromised woman, tainted. No respectable man will have her now. She's ruined you by ruining herself. What do you want, Silas?" Jedediah's voice was heavy with defeat. "I want to help. I am a man of vision. I see the potential in this valley. I see the potential in a strong alliance." More silence. Eliza could almost hear the clink of glasses. "I am a forgiving man, Jedediah," Croft said. "I see a girl led astray by a silver-tongued savage, a girl who needs a firm hand, a husband's hand, to guide her, to restore her good name." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying, I will still have her." Eliza gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Marry her." Her father's voice was shocked. "After this? You'd take her, knowing what she is," Croft corrected. A filly that needs breaking. I'm willing to take on the task. It will show the town that I am a man of compassion. It will show them I have faith in you as my father-in-law. It will silence the talk. I will forgive certain debts you've incurred. The real secret. Eliza's blood froze. Toka was right. He owns him. You would do that. Jedediah's voice was a whisper. I am a generous man. I will make her an honest woman. I will restore your name. All you have to do is say yes. There was a long, terrible pause. Eliza was shaking so hard she had to lean against the door. Say no, Papa. Say no. Please, I am your daughter. She's strong-willed, Silas. I like them strong-willed. The breaking is half the fun. Eliza heard the scrape of a chair, a hand clasp, a deal, a sale. The wedding, Croft said, his voice brisk, will be on Sunday, 4 days. No time for word to spread or for her to get any more foolish ideas. We'll announce it as a swift, joyous occasion. Sunday, her father repeated, his voice numb. I'll send one of my own men to assist you, Jedediah. Deputy Harlan seems a bit soft. This new man, Wes Brannigan, he'll keep a proper eye on the bride-to-be. A gesture of my good faith. The front door closed. The deal was done. Her father's steps were heavy as they approached her door. The key turned. He stood in the doorway, a man she didn't recognize. His eyes were hollow, his shoulders slumped. You heard, he stated. You can't, Eliza whispered, tears streaming down her face. Papa, you cannot. He is a monster. He is the killer. He is the savior, Jedediah hissed, his face contorting. He is saving me from the ruin you brought to my doorstep. You made your bed, Eliza. You lay with traitors, and now you will pay the price. It's not a price, it's a sentence. You are selling me. I am saving you. He roared, his hand raised. He flinched, remembering the slap, and let it fall. You will be Mrs. Silas Croft. You will have a fine house. You will wear fine clothes. You will forget this filth, and you will learn to be grateful. I will never, she spat, her own rage rising. I will die first. No, you won't, her father said, his voice suddenly cold and dead. You'll live, and you'll do as you're told, because if you do not, if you try to run, if you try to shame me again, Croft's man, Brannigan, has orders. Orders? To find the Lakota, and to bring back his scalp. Croft's men are very, very good trackers, Eliza. Your compliance is the only thing keeping that savage alive. Do you understand me? The doom settled over her, complete and absolute. It wasn't just a cage, it was a checkmate. Her silence was her answer. Good, her father said, his face a mask. The dressmaker will be here tomorrow. Wes Brannigan will be outside your door. Do not try me, Eliza. Do not try me again. He closed the door. The key turned. Eliza collapsed onto her bed, her sobs silent. Racking, she was trapped. To save herself would be to murder Toka. To save Toka would be to condemn herself to a living hell. Her father had not just sold her. He had handed Silas Croft the keys to her soul and to Toka's life. The next 2 days were a waking nightmare. Wes Brannigan was a different breed from Deputy Harlan. Where Harlan was nervous and jumpy, Brannigan was a block of granite. He was a large, silent man with dead eyes and a gun belt slung low on his hips. He was one of Croft's men, wearing a deputy's badge as a convenience. He sat on a chair outside her door, sharpening a long knife, whistling a tuneless, repetitive shanty. He was her jailer, and he relished the job. The dressmaker, a mousy woman named Mrs. Gable, was brought in. She clucked and fussed, her hands trembling as she took Eliza's measurements. Such a "A surprise, dearie," she stammered, afraid to meet Eliza's eyes. "Mr. Croft, so generous. He's ordered the finest white silk from Denver. It's already on the way." Eliza stood like a porcelain doll, her eyes vacant. She was a corpse being fitted for a shroud. The town, sensing the shift in power, changed its tune. The shunning turned to a forced, sickly sweet celebration. Women now waved. Mr. Sweeney sent over a box of imported chocolates, compliments of the new arrangement. They were all bowing to their new king, Silas Croft, and she was the sacrificial lamb to seal his reign. Her father was a ghost. He slept in the jail office, unable or unwilling to face her. He drank. She heard the bottles clinking late at night. He was a man running from a debt he could never repay. On the third day, the day before the wedding, Eliza was standing at her window, staring at the high blue line of the rocks where Toka had supposedly fled. She was tracing the dust on the glass when she saw it. On the outer sill, tucked against the frame, was a single hawk feather. Her heart stopped. It was an impossible, fleeting thing, a sign she and Toka had never spoken of, but had shared. During her second visit to the cellar, a hawk had cried out, and Toka had looked at the ceiling, a flicker of something, homesickness, in his eyes. "He flies where the wind cannot," he'd whispered. It couldn't be. Brannigan was right outside her door. The jailhouse was on the main street. He was gone. He was safe. This was just a feather, a coincidence. But as she stared at it, a new, terrifying and wild hope began to beat in her chest. That night, she did not sleep. She sat in the darkness, the white silk wedding dress, delivered that afternoon, hanging on her wardrobe like a pale ghost. She listened to the sounds of the town dying, the saloon piano going quiet. She heard her father stumble into the office, and the cot springs groan. Finally, she heard the one sound she'd been dreading and hoping for, the changing of the guard. Brannigan's heavy boots walking away, and Deputy Harlan's nervous, shuffling steps taking their place. Her father, in a moment of either pity or drunken carelessness, had given her the weaker jailer for the night watch. It was almost 3 a.m. when the shadow detached itself from the wall outside her window. Eliza didn't gasp. She was expecting it. The window was old, the wood swollen. It would make noise. But the figure outside produced a long, thin blade. He worked it carefully into the seam, prying the latch from the outside. It was a skill born of necessity. The window slid up with a barely perceptible shush. Toka slipped into her room. He was not the wounded, chained man from the cellar. He was different. He wore his own buckskins, now clean. He moved with a silent, deadly grace. He was healed, and he was angry. He looked at her, then at the wedding dress. "You are trading one cage for another," he stated. It was not a question. "I have no choice," Eliza whispered, her voice thick. My father, he made a bargain. If I fight, if I run, Croft's men will hunt you down. Your life for my compliance." Toka's eyes, dark in the moonlight, blazed. "He thinks to buy you with my life? He uses my freedom to steal yours. He's a monster, Toka, and my father helped him." "Yes," Toka said, his voice a low growl. "He helped him, but not just by selling you." He moved closer. He smelled of pine and cold night air. "I did not flee to the high rocks, Eliza. I have been watching. I have been remembering." "Remembering what?" "The hole where they buried Elias Vance," Toka said, "at the widow McCrory's homestead. I went back." He reached into a pouch at his belt and pulled out a small, oilcloth-wrapped package. He placed it on her nightstand. "What What is it? Croft and his men. They were in a hurry. They buried Vance, but they were sloppy. They left proof. Eliza's fingers, trembling, unwrapped the oilcloth. Inside was a small, leather-bound book, a journal. It was water-stained and warped, a dark, ugly stain on the cover that she knew was dried blood. Elias Vance's journal, Toka said. Eliza opened it. The handwriting was elegant, educated. She read the last few entries, her horror growing with every word. October 12th. Silas grows more erratic. He sees the Lakota not as partners, but as obstacles. He speaks of clearing the valley. I fear his greed has soured his soul. October 14th. He has found a new friend in the sheriff, Jedediah Thorne. A weak man, a gambler. Silas has assisted him with a large marker from the Denver tables. Silas now holds his debt. This is not good. October 16th. Confronted Silas today. He laughed at me. He has been rebranding government stock, stealing from the army reserves. He calls it business. I told him I would expose him to the marshal. And then the final, shaky entry, dated the day of his death. October 19th. He has asked me to ride out to the old McCrory place, to talk. He says he will. Make it right. I do not trust him. I am bringing this journal. If I do not return, know that Silas Croft is a thief, a liar. The entry ended there. He murdered Elias Vance, Eliza breathed, to steal the ranch. And my father. He knew. He didn't know about the murder, maybe. But he knew Croft was a criminal. He was compromised. From the beginning. He was, Toka said. And now, Croft has everything. The ranch, the law in his pocket, and Ebo, the sheriff's daughter. A final, perfect seal on his new kingdom. Eliza looked at the journal, then at Toka. The fear was gone, burned away by a cold, sharp rage. No, she said. Eliza, no, she said again, her voice like steel. He doesn't get to win. He doesn't get me. He doesn't get this valley. And he doesn't get to use your life to buy my silence. What are you? The wedding, Eliza said, her mind racing, is tomorrow at noon, at the new hotel. The whole town will be there. Even Judge Amos Blackwood, the circuit judge. He's coming from Denver to officiate. A favor to Mr. Croft. Toka's eyes lit with a sudden, fierce understanding. A judge. A judge, Eliza confirmed. We can't just run. Running means he wins. We have to expose him. In front of everyone. Expose him? With a book? Toka shook his head. They will call it a forgery. They will call you a bitter, hysterical woman. They will call me a liar. They will hang us both. Not if we have more than a book, Eliza said, her gaze hardening. We need a diversion, a big one. Something to break his control. Something to make the town afraid of him. And we need to get this journal into the judge's hands before I say, I do. Toka watched her, a slow smile spreading across his face. The fox had found his cleverness again. A fire, Toka said. A fire, Eliza agreed. A big fire. Croft, he just finished his new livery stable, filled with his Circle C stock, the horses he stole. It's perfect, Eliza said. It's at the opposite end of town from the hotel. It will split the town. It will split his men. It's a plan, Toka said. But it's dangerous. Brannigan, your father. I don't care, Eliza said. She picked up the white silk dress and held it, not as a shroud, but as a weapon. I am going to my wedding, and I am going to see Silas Croft doom, not mine. Toka nodded. I will be in the shadows. Wait for the bell. When the livery bell rings, the fire is set. That is your signal. Get the book to the judge. He moved to the window. Toka, she said. He paused. Thank you. For coming back. He looked at her, his expression unreadable in the dark. I did not come back for you, Eliza Thorne. I came back for Elias Vance. I came back for my people. I came back because a fox does not like to be in a trap. He slipped out the window, as silent as the shadow he was. Eliza Thorne stood in her room, holding a dead man's journal. She was alone, and she had never been more powerful. The morning of the wedding was beautiful, a cruel mockery of the day's true purpose. The sky was a sharp, cloudless blue. A festive air, part genuine, part terrified, gripped Redemption Creek. Eliza was a prisoner in white. Mrs. Gable returned to dress her, her hands fluttering like nervous moths. "Oh, such a vision, dearie," she clucked, pulling the corset strings tighter than necessary. Eliza bore the pain, her face a calm, placid mask. She was saving her strength. The silk dress was magnificent. It was also a cage. Wes Brannigan, her jailer, had traded his dusty trail clothes for a stiff, new suit. He looked like a hog stuffed into a sausage casing. He stood outside her door, not with a knife, but with a new, polished shotgun. "Time, Miss Thorne," he said, his voice a gravelly rumble. Her father was waiting in the parlor. He too was in his Sunday best. His sheriff's badge seemed to weigh him down, a mark of shame, not honor. He looked at his daughter, his eyes filled with a toxic mix of pride and utter despair. "Eliza," he started, You look like a lamb to the slaughter, Papa?" she asked, her voice clear and cold. He flinched. It's for the best. You'll see. He's a good provider." "He is a murderer," she said simply. "Silence," he hissed, grabbing her arm. You will not ruin this. You will walk, you will smile, and you will say, yes. Remember our bargain." He was reminding her of Toka's life. He didn't know she was holding the key to his life, Vance's journal, tucked into the heavy folds of her petticoats, the oilcloth package strapped tight against her leg. The walk to the new Grand Hotel was the longest of her life. Brannigan walked behind her, the shotgun held loosely, a clear message. Her father walked beside her, his hand on her arm, a proprietor leading his prize stock. The townspeople lined the street, cheering, throwing rice. They were cheering their own salvation, bought with her soul. The hotel lobby was packed. Silas Croft, magnificent in a black brocade suit, stood at the end of the room, a large potted palm behind him. He was smiling, his teeth very white, and standing beside him, looking grim and important in his black robes, was Judge Amos Blackwood. Judge Blackwood was an older man, with a face carved from granite and eyes that had seen too much. He was not one of Croft's men. He was the law, the real law. "Please let this work," Eliza prayed. The tinny piano in the corner began the wedding march. Her father, his hand sweating, began to pull her down the aisle. 1 step, 2 steps. She was halfway to the altar. Croft's smile widened. He was tasting victory. "Score, score," Eliza faltered. It was the sound from the cellar, the sound of a file on steel. Bong, bong, bong. It was the fire bell, the livery bell, ringing, not in alarm, but in a frantic, panicked rhythm. A man burst through the hotel doors, his face black with soot. "Fire! Fire at the new livery! The whole place is going up!" Chaos. The lobby erupted. Men shouted. Women screamed. The livery was Croft's pride, his single biggest, most visible investment. "My horses!" Croft roared, his face turning purple. He forgot his bride, his wedding, everything. "My stock!" He turned to his men. "Brannigan, get every man you can, save them." "But boss, the girl..." Brannigan hesitated, looking at Eliza. The horses are worth more, Croft shrieked. Go! Go! Brannigan and half the men in the room bolted for the door, shoving townspeople aside. Her father, Jedediah, was frozen, his loyalties split. The fire, his daughter, the law. In that moment, the entire power structure of the town had evaporated. All eyes were on the fire, except for Eliza's and Judge Blackwood's. This was her chance. She lifted the hem of her dress. Her father, seeing her movement, made a grab for her. Eliza, no! Not now! Now, Papa, she said. She pulled the oilcloth-wrapped journal from her petticoats. She didn't run. She walked. She walked, with all the dignity of a queen, right past the sputtering Silas Croft, right past her stunned father, and stopped directly in front of Judge Blackwood. The judge, his eyes wide with confusion at the scene, looked at her. My dear, this is hardly the Judge Blackwood, Eliza said, her voice carrying through the suddenly quiet lobby. The remaining guests, trapped between the fire outside and the drama inside, were silent. You are here to officiate a wedding, but I fear you are about to preside over an inquest. She held out the journal. What is this? The judge asked, taking the oilcloth package. It is the last words of Elias Vance, Eliza said, her voice ringing. Silas Croft, who had been about to run outside, froze. The color drained from his face. Elias Vance, the judge said, his voice sharpening. He disappeared last fall. He was murdered, Judge, Eliza said, by the groom, Mr. Silas Croft. Lies! Croft roared, lunging for her. She's a hysterical, spurned woman. She's the Lakota's whore. Enough! Judge Blackwood's voice was a cannon shot. He held up a hand, silencing the room. He had opened the journal. He was reading the last entry. He read the words. He read the part about the sheriff's debt. His eyes, cold and hard, lifted from the page and found Jedediah Thorne. Sheriff, the judge said, his voice dangerously quiet. This journal speaks of certain markers from Denver. It speaks of your compromise. Her father crumpled. He didn't say a word. He just sagged. The badge on his chest seemed to tarnish. It's a forgery, Croft screamed, his composure completely gone. He drew his pistol. The wedding is happening. She is mine. I own this town. I own him, and I own her. He leveled the pistol, not at the judge, but at Eliza. You will be my wife, or you will be a corpse. No, a new voice said. It came from the landing on the hotel stairs. Every head turned. Toka stood there. He was not in the shadows. He was in the light, holding a bow, an arrow nocked. He was not a savage. He was a witness. He murdered Elias Vance, Toka said, his voice echoing in the lobby. I saw him. I saw him bury the body in the well at the McCrory homestead, and I saw him bury that book. Croft, trapped, his eyes wide with animal panic, swung the gun from Eliza to Toka. You, he screamed. You're dead! He fired. The shot was deafening. The bullet splintered the stair rail. But Toka was faster. His arrow was a blur. It didn't fly at Croft's heart. It flew at his hand. The broadhead arrow struck Croft's wrist, pinning his gun hand to the wall behind him. The pistol clattered to the floor. Croft let out a high-pitched, inhuman shriek of pain and shock. The fire bell was still ringing. The doom had arrived. The hotel lobby was a tableau of frozen horror. Silas Croft, the invincible titan of Redemption Creek, was pinned to his own wall by a Lakota arrow, howling like a stuck pig. Judge Amos Blackwood was the first to move. Sheriff Thorne, he barked, his voice the whip crack of authority. Arrest that man. Jedediah Thorne was a broken statue. He stared at his daughter, at the Lakota on the stairs, at the man who had owned him. Sheriff, the judge roared again. Papa, Eliza said, her voice soft but insistent. The law. It was that one word. The law. The thing he had built his life on, and the thing he had betrayed. Jedediah Thorne's shoulders straightened. The hollow look in his eyes was replaced by a slow, burning ember. He walked past his daughter. He walked past the judge. He stood in front of the writhing, cursing Silas Croft. He didn't say a word. He just unhooked the handcuffs from his belt. "You can't!" Croft shrieked, blood streaming down his arm. "I own you, Jedediah. I own you." "No," Jedediah said, his voice a low rumble. "You bought a marker, Silas, but my daughter, she just paid the debt." With a sharp click, he snapped the cuff onto Croft's free wrist. At that moment, Wes Brannigan and the other men, having seen the fire was a lost cause, burst back in, smelling of smoke. "Boss, the livery's gone. They stopped, staring at the scene. Their boss, cuffed by the sheriff, a Lakota holding a bow, a bride holding a bloody journal. "Brannigan," Judge Blackwood said, pointing, "you and your men are accessories to murder, and as a circuit judge, I am deputizing every citizen in this room. Stand down or hang." The deputies, their paymaster clearly out of commission, dropped their guns. It was over. "Jedediah," the judge said, his voice softer. He gestured to Toka. "That man, he is a witness, but he is also an escaped prisoner." Jedediah Thorne looked up at Toka. He and the Lakota shared a long, silent look. The sheriff nodded. He walked to the center of the room. Slowly, he reached up. He unpinned the tin star from his chest. He walked to Judge Blackwood and placed the badge on the table, next to the journal. "I reckon," Jedediah said, his voice thick. "I reckon Redemption Creek is in need of a new sheriff. I'm done." He turned and looked at his daughter. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He didn't offer excuses. He just nodded, a small, sad acknowledgement of the chasm between them. Then he turned and walked out the front door, no longer a lawman, just a man. The townspeople, quiet, began to part, letting him through. Eliza watched him go. A part of her wanted to call out, but she didn't. She turned to Toka, who was walking down the stairs. The judge, the townsfolk. They all watched. Toka was the hero, and he was the savage. They didn't know what to do. Toka walked to the judge. "The body of Elias Vance is in the dry well at the old McCrory homestead. His testimony," he tapped the journal, "is true." You will testify?" the judge asked. Toka shook his head. "I have spoken my truth. My part in this is done." He looked at Eliza. She, in her ruined, smoke-stained wedding dress, met his gaze. There were 1,000 things to say. "Thank you. I'm sorry. Where will you go?" He didn't need words. He had not returned to free her. She had not saved him. They were two people who had been caught in the same trap, and by raw will had found a way to gnaw through the bars for each other. They had freed themselves, and in doing so, freed a whole town. Toka nodded to her, a gesture of deep, profound respect. A fox to his equal. He turned and walked out of the hotel. No one stopped him. They just watched him go, a shadow slipping back into the light. He walked past the smouldering livery, past the jailhouse, and up toward the high country, never once looking back. Eliza stood in the lobby, holding a dead man's journal. She was free. She was an orphan. She was a pariah. And she was the town's savior. She looked at Judge Blackwood. "Judge," she said, her voice clear and strong, "you're going to need a statement." She was no longer Eliza Thorne, the sheriff's daughter. She was just Eliza. And for the first time in her life, she was writing her own story. And so, the smoke cleared over Redemption Creek. The story of Eliza Thorne and Toka isn't one you'll find in the history books. It's a story etched in the shadows, a tale of how true courage isn't about facing a bullet, but about speaking the truth when the whole world is built on a lie. Eliza didn't just escape her doom, she dismantled it. And Toka, he proved that freedom isn't something that's given, it's something you take. What happens next? Does the town find redemption? Does Eliza find her new path? Those are stories for another time. What did you think of Eliza's choice? Would you have had the courage to light the match? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. These hidden histories of the West are what we live for. If you loved this story and want more tales of grit, betrayal, and true redemption, do me a favor. Hit that like button, share this video with someone who loves a good story, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. We have so many more shadows to explore. Thanks for listening.